And here's the number one mistake that a lot of people are going to do when gain staging a session. Let's talk about gain staging. I'm going to share with you some common gain staging mistakes you need to avoid. What's going on? Chris Salim here from Mixdown Online. I hope you are safe and well. Before we jump in, don't forget to download my free training on how to build the perfect mix template. That also includes some free multi-tracks for you to download and also some mixing cheat sheets. Okay, so the link is down below. Okay, now to the topic of the video, which is gain staging. You've heard about gain staging before. I actually made a video years ago talking about that topic. Now, gain staging, if you're not familiar with that term or what that is, or if you're new to mixing, gain staging is like the right way to start a mix. Okay, so it's just a way to balance the level of a recording before you start mixing a session. Now, to make a long story short, we gain stage a session to give us headroom while mixing. So there are several reasons why I do love to gain stage a session before starting a mix. Headroom is one of them. So if we go here in Cubase, when I'm talking about headroom, for example, let's look at the stereo bus that I have right here. Now, at the moment, the stereo bus is at a -5, -4 dBFS level, which is perfect. And the reason why is because my session has been gain staged properly. So that gives me some headroom on my mix bus. I also gain stage to avoid peaking my channels and to keep my faders near unity point, which is the 0 point on a channel. And the reason why I like to leave everything at unity point is a matter of resolution. For example, if I bring down the level of the channel by 10 dB, the distance between those 2 dB points is going to be larger, opposed to if I have my fader down the channel, where the distance between the same dB points is going to be way tighter. Okay, so the resolution is way better when my faders are near unity point. This is a personal preference. I love to work this way, way better for automation, in my opinion. And I just avoid getting all of my channels super low in the mixing session. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to end up with a few channels that are going to be low. I don't mind that if that happens, but for the most part, for the most of the channels, I like to have them close to unity point. And same for my mix bus. My mix bus, I love it to stay at 0, and I usually don't touch it. And same for instrument buses, I'm going to leave them at unity point unless I need to automate them for some reason. Then I don't have a problem to do so. And another reason why I love to gain stage a session is not to peak the plugins. And this is something important in my opinion, especially plugins that are modeled after analog gear. If that process is well done, the plugin is going to behave the same way as an analog gear does. So in the analog world, the level measurement is done in VU. So you probably know what a VU meter looks like, and this is the main level measurement meter of an analog gear. Now in the digital world, we're talking about dBFS, which is dB full scale, and when we go above 0 dB, we are peaking. And when we peak a digital signal, the result is not very good, opposed to going above 0 VU on an analog gear. This is not going to destroy the signal. It's actually going to add some tone to the signal at some point, depending on what analog gear you work with. So plugins that are modeled after an analog gear, like a compressor or a console emulation plugin, and that kept that 0 VU analog calibration. Now, those plugins can end up peaking if the initial signal is way too loud. Okay, so this is something to pay attention to. So that's a reason why I do gain stage also. But if you're just dealing with some digital plugins that are not analog gear emulation, those will not be the same. As far as you don't go above 0 dBFS, you're good. But even with that, I'm still going to gain stage my session for all the other reasons. So what is the perfect gain staging level? You probably heard about the sweet spot of -18 dBFS. I actually talked about that before more than once. And this is actually, yes, a sort of sweet spot. The reason is very simple. If we go back to analog gear again and we look at the 0 VU point, that mark point is going to be the equivalent of -18 dBFS. So that's why we tend to use that number as the sweet spot. And here's the number one mistake that a lot of people are going to do when gain staging a session. They're going to focus way too much on the number. They're going to take that -18 dBFS and they're only going to focus on that. And they're going to take ages to gain stage a session. That is a big problem. And this is something that I receive all the time by email from students, from people watching my videos on YouTube. A lot of time I'm going to have the same questions over and over again about that -18 sweet spot. Do I really need to be gain staging at that level? What if I gain stage at -15? Is that so bad? And they're just freaking way too much on that number only, and they actually lose track of what gain staging is to begin with. And this is something that is very important to understand when it comes to that -18 sweet spot. You don't have to freak out about this. You don't have to focus too much about that level. On my side, I will look at the -18 point for sure, but I'm going to keep my signal between -18 to -10, and that's it. If I'm within that range, I'm good. And then moving on with your mix. Okay, so just don't focus too much on that number. Take that number to your advantage as a guideline, That's it. That's all you need to do. When I do some recording, same thing. I'm going to aim for a recording level of -18 to -10 when it comes to peaks. And I can even sometimes peak at -8 and I'm still going to be good. And when I'm going to start mixing, my levels are going to be okay in my session. I might have to gain stage a few tracks, but that's going to be it, because I did it from the start, from the recording stage. And this is the way I like to work. But if I need to bring some channels down, I just do so in a very simple way, and that's it, and I just move on. Now in Cubase, the way I like to gain stage stuff, there's two ways. First, I can use the gain level here, that I have here on the mix console, and doing it from the mix console actually speeds up my workflow. I just bring all of my channels to unity point, and I just bring down the gain of the loud channels. And that's it. Or just bring up the quieter channels, because this is something that happens as well. A track that was recorded way too quiet, I'm going to need to bring it up. So in that case, I'm going to bring the gain of the channel hotter, so higher. So if you don't see that pre-gain section, what you need to do is to click on tracks on the top of the mix console and make sure that pre-filter gain phase is checked on. And you will see the pre-tab right here on your mix console, and gain is going to be available for you. There's also clip gain that you can work with straight from the project window. You just select the tracks that are too loud and you just bring them down. That's another way you can do it. Both are good. It's a matter of preference. I will do both. I'm mainly going to work with pre-gain, but sometimes just bringing a channel that is way too loud with clip gain is going to do the job pretty well also. Now, I just want to point something out before I end this video. And this is going to be a very useful tip for you. And this is something, again, that is another mistake that a lot of people are going to tend to do. Now, when we're looking at the gain that we have here on top, when we're playing with the gain of a channel in Cubase, we have to realize that this process, whether it's clip gain or working with the gain itself, from the channel settings window right here, or from the mix console, like we have right here, it's the same thing. This is going to be done pre-insert. You're bringing the signal up or down before the signal hits the insert plugins. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand. So before the signal goes through the channel strip and the plugins, the insert plugins and sends and so on, it's going to go through the gain section first. So that's why we do gain staging before we start playing with the faders and before we start adding plugins on. Okay, once this is done, you're going to be good to go. However, you just need to realize that the more plugins you add, the more it will affect the gain of the channel, like the main volume of the channel itself. For example, if you're adding an EQ will affect the level of the channel, because if you're adding some frequencies on your EQ, you're going to gain way more level on your channel. And if you're cutting a bunch of frequencies, the level of the channel is going to end up quieter. Okay, so this is what EQ does. And it's the same for a compressor. Sometimes it's going to compress a signal, the output level is going to be too loud, and you're going to end up with a loud signal, even if you gain stage your signal before. Okay, so you need to be careful with that. And what I do on my side is I gain stage as I go. So I play with the output level of a plugin if I need to. So if I'm working with a plugin that will add a lot of gain to my channel, I'm going to bring down the output so I can keep that same level relation. So for example, let's take this synth bass where I have the Nimbrini PSA 1000 inserted. This is a saturation distortion plugin. It's kind of a SansAmp emulation. So if I bypass it first, And let's bring it on. Now it's way louder. So if I keep that as is and I continue mixing my session and I bring down my fader because the level is way too loud, that's one way to do it, and that's okay. You know, if you're not peaking your channel, it's going to be fine. If you're peaking your channel though, and you kind of catch that up later on into the mix, and your channel level is super low, you're picking the channel or a plugin, and you want to gain stage that back, what you need to do is to avoid playing with the gain of the channel, because this is going to mess around with the signal going into your plugin. In my case, the distortion plugin that I have. So I hope you follow this. Let me give you an example. I'm going to bring that back up. So let's say I'm bringing back my channel to unity point, and I want to bring down the level of this channel. So let's use the pre-gain and gain stage my session or my channel. Now I'm probably at the same level as I was before. Now the problem I have right now is that my sound is not the same, okay? So that's why playing with the pre-gain option in Cubase, after you have some plugins on, is a no-go if you want to gain stage a channel later on into the mix. Okay, so I'm gonna just bring that back to the level it was. And what I need to do in that case is to bring the output level of the plugin lower. Now the gain staging level, my initial gain stage level of this channel, stays the same. Okay, so the output level of a plugin is going to be your best friend throughout a mix. So as you insert plugins, if you balance that out with the output level of a plugin, you're going to be fine. So there you go, my friend. This is my take on gain staging. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave everything down below. Don't forget to share, to like if you enjoyed the video, and to subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Until next time, take care and see you.